The translator's legs stopped working properly somewhere between the airlock and the throne room, which seemed suboptimal for someone whose job required appearing competent. Adrian Koss had translated 17 languages across 9 species, but none of those assignments involved walking through corridors that looked like they were grown rather than built, lit by things that pulsed like heartbeats in the walls. The briefing had been clear. The Sanguivora were apex predators, blood-consuming, hierarchy-obsessed, and extremely prone to taking offense. Do not improvise. Do not joke. Absolutely do not make it weird. When the doors opened and he saw her rising from that throne, his brain cataloged details with professional efficiency. 2 meters tall, skin like polished stone, eyes that reflected light like a cat's, and ears that swept upward into points that would make aerodynamic engineers weep. She moved toward them with the fluid grace of something that had never questioned its position at the top of the food chain. His brain supplied the word matriarch. His mouth, operating on an entirely different frequency, said, "You have a nice ass." The universe stopped. The ambassador behind him stopped breathing. The guard stopped looking bored and started looking homicidal. The matriarch stopped walking, turned fully toward him, and Adrian watched his entire career catch fire in slow motion. Her expression shifted through several emotions he couldn't name, finally landing somewhere between disbelief and something that might have been amusement. Then she laughed. Actually laughed, this low resonant sound that made the bioluminescent walls pulse brighter. "You," she said, voice turning standard into poetry, "are either incredibly brave or phenomenally stupid." Adrian's brain finally reconnected. "Can I pick both?" She laughed again, shorter this time, waving back guards who looked disappointed at being denied violence. The matriarch circled him slowly, and Adrian understood with crystal clarity how rabbits felt in open fields. 400 cycles, she said, still circling. 17 diplomatic envoys. All brought gifts wrapped in careful words. All spoke in circles that meant nothing. All bored me enough that I considered eating them for variety. She stopped directly in front of him. "You are the first to speak truth without polish." "That wasn't truth, that was panic," Adrian managed. "That was my brain abandoning ship and my mouth going rogue." "Rogue," she repeated, testing the word. "We Sanguivora value strength, but we also value honesty. Your colleague there," she gestured toward the ambassador who looked ready to die of professional embarrassment, "would speak for hours without saying anything real. You spoke for seconds and revealed everything." Adrian glanced at the ambassador's expression, which conveyed that resume updates would be necessary, assuming survival. "Your species confuses me," the matriarch continued. "You possess intelligence, clearly. You have achieved interstellar travel, yet your brain malfunctions under pressure and produces social destruction." She tilted her head, those elegant ears shifting. "How do you survive?" "Spite and accident mostly," Adrian said, then immediately regretted having a mouth. She smiled, all predator. "Fascinating. I wish to understand this better. Explain humans to me." Behind him, the ambassador made a sound like a transmission dying. Adrian realized with creeping horror that he was now humanity's representative, because he'd complimented an alien vampire's posterior. The diplomatic corps would never let him live this down. Assuming he lived, what should have been formal diplomatic theater became something closer to cultural anthropology conducted at knife point. "The matriarch, call me Velena," she'd said, which apparently was a significant honor he'd accidentally earned through catastrophic honesty, wanted to understand human psychology, specifically the part where survival instincts failed spectacularly. Adrian found himself explaining anxiety, social phobia, and the fascinating way human brains could simultaneously know the correct response and produce the exact opposite. "It's like having a co-pilot who's actively trying to crash." Velena listened with the intensity of someone dissecting interesting prey. "We suppress all emotional display in formal contexts. Weakness invites challenge. Challenge invites death. We suppress nothing and somehow expect it to work out, Adrian said. We call it authenticity. We call it suicide, Velena countered, but her tone suggested she found it intriguing rather than insulting. Yet your species thrives. This should not work. Welcome to humanity. Nothing should work. Everything's held together with optimism and poor decisions. She laughed, and Adrian noticed her guards had relaxed slightly, which felt like progress toward not being eaten. Your honesty is either a brilliant strategy or proof your species succeeds despite itself. Velena leaned back, studying him. I cannot determine which, and I find that delightful. It's the second one, Adrian assured her. We're very good at accidental survival. Clearly, she gestured to something a guard brought, refreshments that looked only mildly terrifying. You have done something 17 careful diplomats could not. You made me interested. I panicked and insulted you. You panicked and spoke truth. I can work with truth. Lies bore me. She raised her glass in what seemed like a toast. Your terrible impulse control just opened diplomatic relations. Congratulations. The ambassador spent the walk back to the shuttle oscillating between relief and existential crisis. You complimented her anatomy. You called an apex predator physically attractive. And somehow we have an alliance. Adrian nodded, still processing. I'm unclear on how I'm still alive. She found you refreshing. Apparently centuries of careful diplomacy are less effective than catastrophic honesty. The ambassador rubbed his temples. I need to report this. Nobody will believe it. As their shuttle departed, Adrian watched the organic vessel recede, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing like a heartbeat. His communicator chimed, a message from Velena herself, which seemed unprecedented based on the ambassador's expression. Your species interests me more than any in recent memory. Return when convenient. Bring your chaotic honesty. Leave your political colleagues. They dilute your entertainment value. V. The ambassador read over his shoulder and made a sound like laughing and crying simultaneously. You just became humanity's primary contact with a species that could end us, because you panicked. Should I put that on my resume? You should put that in a museum. Frame it. How humanity achieved peace through accidental compliments. The ambassador collapsed into a seat. I need to rethink my entire career. Adrian looked at the message again. Velena's laughter echoed in his memory, genuine, surprised, the sound of someone encountering something unexpected and choosing curiosity over offense. Maybe honesty is a strategy, he said quietly. Maybe they're tired of everyone being afraid. Or, the ambassador said, maybe you're the luckiest idiot in diplomatic history. Can I pick both? The ambassador threw a data pad at him, but he was smiling. Back on the Sanguivora vessel, Velena reviewed the encounter logs, replaying the moment of frozen shock, the terrible compliment, the beautiful chaos that followed. Her advisors worried about precedent, about showing amusement, about appearing weak. She dismissed